Hello and welcome to the Geeks Review. I'm Royce.
And I'm Joshua.
On today's show, we are once again returning to the review format, Compare the Pair, where we take an original movie and its remake and see how they measure up against each other. Today, we're going to be talking about 101 Dalmatians. This was adapted from a book by Dodie Smith, first as an animation in the 1950s or 1960s, probably should have checked that, and a live-action film starring Glenn Close in 1996. Now, we're doing this in response to Cruella, which we spoke about on the show before.
Which was, I think, the other week.
What's your experience with 101 Dalmatians as a whole?
I had the cassette as a kid. So VHS cassette.
Yep. Which film was this?
The first one, the animated one, 101
yeah.
Dalmatians. And I briefly saw the live action one on television.
Oh, right, yes.
I think it was on Channel 7 one night.
Channel 7 used to be like Disney. I mean,
Yeah.
they had Saturday Disney for so long, but it was like Friday, Saturday night. You had like, you know.
All the Disney films on, yeah.
So, for me, it was definitely the live action one, also on VHS cassette. We also had 102 Dalmatians on the PlayStation, which was a game where you played as one of the puppies, and it was sort of cartoon styled, but tied into the sequel
Yes.
to the live action one. I didn't actually get around to seeing the animated one until this review.
Recently, yeah.
Yeah. So this was your first time as well going into the live action one?
No, this would be my second time.
Right, okay.
Because I had seen it on television previously, a couple decades ago, when I was younger.
So revisiting these films, I'm guessing as well for you, it had been quite a few years since you saw them.
Yes.
How strong was it in your memory?
I remembered the animated one more than I remembered the live action one.
Yeah.
I was able to nearly beat for beat without missing one bird back some of the lines that were being uttered by Pongo and Roger and Cruella
Wow.
and Horace and Jasper, and it's just, oh my god, it's been so long since I'd seen it. And I was watching, and I was just, hang on a second. Oh, that's right. The openings to these animated Disney films back in the 50s and 60s were like super long and stunning, but musically appealing.
It's funny because it was exactly the same for me, but for the live action one. Now, to be fair, I did see this one like a year or two ago when it first came out on Disney+. But at that point, it had been like 18 years since I'd seen it, but it was still so ingrained in my memory. Beat for beat, I could remember just always lines.
The one thing that I do remember most about live action was that there were moments where I thought they were reusing lines from the animated film, and then I found out, quite recently, last 2 weeks, that it's based on a book.
Yes. I believe we owned a book, but I never read it. So, I mean,
Funny that.
it's always the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turns out a lot of those lines were actually taken by Glenn Close herself, who plays Cruella de Vil in this, from the animated one, and tweaked and used in the live-action context to sort of give the character a bit more of an edge, which she definitely has.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think Glenn Close is a much better Cruella than Emma Thompson, no offense to the...
Emma Stone, yes.
Emma Stone, thank you.
Yes.
Oof.
2 Emmas in that movie.
Two
Cruella.
Emmas, Jesus.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, Cruella de Vil, as played by Glenn Close, is just leagues ahead of, I think, even the animated one.
Yeah.
Because with...
She's more flamboyant and deranged.
Yeah, they really had a lot of fun with her costumes. I think even today they sort of stand out as being very sort of fashion conscious, very fashionable.
Yes.
Yeah, with the two though, it does kind of feel like the original was neutered, I feel. I mean, she's still quite vicious and quite demonic.
She's Disney evil for the era.
Whereas I feel Glenn Close, and this isn't just preference, but she's really got more to her.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole fashion thing, which I guess we now associate with the character, wasn't really a thing with the original.
No, it was just a person who loved dressing ostentatiously.
She loved fur.
Yeah.
That was the deal, the massive fur coat on her was just, such a symbol of who she was as a character, and the black and white hair, which they do a lot more with.
Yes.
It's, in the original as well as the book, Cruella was actually school friends with Anita, and...
That's something that's been very consistent over all the films.
Less so for the Glenn Close one.
Yeah.
Jolie Richardson playing Anita. Oh my gosh, she was Lady Chatterley in the 90s adaptation opposite Sean Bean. Got an eyeful and a half watching that. They're both naked running around the woods. And it's,
okay.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise watching that one. And Jeff Daniels as Roger.
Yes.
Which is what I knew him from before Dumb and Dumber, before basically everything else he's done.
I never made the connection.
Really?
Even now, it's kind of like, oh my god, wow, yeah, okay, now I'm seeing it.
So the original one opens up with narration from Pongo, who is the Dalmatian dog owned by Roger. And he's very much like they're living this bachelor lifestyle. They need...
The Spartan life of a bachelor man.
Yeah, Roger's a musician, and they spot, Anita and Purdy, the dog, out for a walk. And
well, Pongo does, because he's trying to find a mate for his pet.
Yeah, he sees they see their humans as pets, which is fun. And, yeah, sort of engineers a meeting between the two. And it's interesting that, hey?
It is. I mean, they definitely do carry a few things over between the two where dogs do look like their owners or their owners look like their dogs.
Yeah. It's they kind of try it a bit with the live action, but obviously with the animation one, you can really
play the field for it.
Yeah. John Hughes actually wrote the live action remake, of The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller.
Okay, yeah.
Big chase scene.
Yeah.
With that live action one where Pongo runs after Anita and Purdy and drags Roger on the bicycle along behind and crashes into the pond. And I still find it kind of charming, their meeting.
Yeah.
Weirdly quirky. She thinks Roger is trying to steal her dog because he's a Dalmatian, assumes that's his, and she bashes him about the head and is like, "What have you got in your handbag? Rocks? Oh no, bricks." And he's just like, "Naturally, right, of course."
It does surprise me the differences between Jasper and Horace.
Yes, played by Hugh Laurie and Mark Williams, Father Brown.
Yes.
As perhaps people would know him now, but of course, Arthur Weasley from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
This was the first thing I saw them in as well.
I was just like, whoa. But when you look at the animated film, it's almost like apples and pears.
Yeah.
Because you've got I'm trying to find the right words, because I honestly feel like in the animated version, Horace and Jasper, as much as they are two bungling buffoons, are a real threat. While here, they're just Tweedledee, Tweedledum, the criminal.
In the live action one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's definitely the comedic side of them coming through as opposed to...
And don't get me wrong, that's... I love those two as comedics.
Yeah. God, look at the size of that scar.
Don't look at him, you don't talk to him, and above all, you do not ask about the scar.
Yeah, it's... You're right, they're a lot more comedic.
Yes.
There's obviously time to flesh things out. It doesn't quite go the Beauty and the Beast route, which was sort of like, people have made memes about the plot holes in our original, so we need to fill them in. This sort of feels more like a natural extension, like...
Well, this was before the internet.
Yeah, true. Joan Plowright, who does she play? She plays the nanny. Is it the nanny?
Yes.
Is that the yeah, she's kind of
It's called Nanny.
She's sort of a non-character in the original. Who Jasper sort of, pokes fun at a bit.
And locks her in Roger's storage room.
It's quite menacing when it happens. In this one, wearing the stockings on the head, and he opens the door. Good evening.
Trying not to, go that little extra out of, we're from the gas company. No, the electrical company.
Yeah. They're just very forceful in comparison, yeah.
The true apex of gentlemen thieves in the form of English chavs.
Yeah. I think as well about the Twilight bike, which is, the dogs after the puppies are stolen.
Yeah.
Go and make this big old, chain bark, where they bark and another dog hears and barks.
Reaches all the way to Sussex.
Yeah.
They're in London and they walk all the way to Sussex. That's not a very short walk.
Well, I mean, they're very determined dogs.
They're very determined dogs, but they play it off. In both the animated and the live action, it's just a matter of days.
Well, I guess it kind of is. I mean, it does...
He's walking all the way to Sussex. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with that.
Well, the ending actually says that they sort of get back within the one night, where that's sort of more of a suspension of disbelief.
that is a huge suspension of disbelief.
I mean, you can imagine it's like early night by the time they kind of get there, and then it's morning by the time they get home, but it's sort of, it really is transporting 98, 99 puppies, you know, it's...
If I ever do go to England, I am going to try and prove this theory wrong of walking from London to Sussex.
You do remember that dogs are on four legs and they can run faster than humans.
I cannot for that. I cannot. I don't know why it irks me. It just irks me.
That'd be a fun experiment, actually. Can the dogs actually do this? I'm going to time myself. It's like, excuse me, I need to cross through your yard. What are you doing, you bloody fool? Get out of here.
I'll call 999 on you, you scoundrel.
That's a YouTube video.
Yeah, it is.
101 Dalmatians. I did find the barking to be quite a lot in the,
Oh
in the
my
animated one.
God.
It's sort of, there's like a crescendo. It sort of builds more in the live action, I feel, and whereas with the animated, it was just dogs barking.
Get a couple of dogs into the soundstage.
Yeah, nowadays, oh god, I mean, Frank Welker was around then, wasn't he? He was doing Scooby-Doo at that time. And he's a great vocalist, you know, it probably would have been him, you know, or someone... Actually, I think it was, I did read it was actually an actor doing the vocalizations of the dogs. You know, someone can obviously make a barking noise. Comparison, what else have we got?
Well, we've talked about Glenn, we've talked about Cruella, we've talked about... they changed Roger's occupation between the animated film and the live action film. He went from musician to game designer.
Yeah, which was... You don't really get a sense of the process of making a game, though.
No, they do sort of have that as that's his primary income.
This is 1996, 97.
Yeah, 96, 97.
And it's a very... I mean, the game takes visual cues from the original animated film. And there were point-and-click adventures at the time.
Yes,
you know,
there were. Monkey
was
Island.
full motion video. We're getting into a technical side here, but I'm
There
kind of
we
thinking
are.
like... Knowing what we know now about games and how they work and how they were made... Yeah,
It's amazing that he's able to do it all by himself.
Yeah. God, he would have drawn all those sprites. Yeah.
I think he's wasting his talents in game design. He should be working in animation.
Yeah. You're right there. I mean, talking about the relationship between Anita and Cruella
Yes.
is a lot more fleshed out. It's a lot more real.
She works for her.
Yeah, Cruella is properly malicious as she obviously runs this fashion house and she sees Anita's designs and then kind of sees the dog, you know, the photo of Anita's dog on her desk and then kind of goes like, you know, what a charming dog. And starts to think then about actually using the Dalmatians. It's not out of a hate, it's out of an appreciation for the fur. Whereas in the animated one, it sort of just comes out of nowhere. It's just like, Cruella's here. Oh, where are those puppies so I can skin them? You know, give them to me.
Oh boy, here I go Disney eviling again.
Yeah, it's a lot more of a build-up in it. Even it's sort of one of those things where it's like, does it need to justify it? But it justifies it by the dog's fur being softer as a puppy, so that's why she wants a puppy coat. You know.
Yeah.
So a lot
Very Mr. Burns like. Or is it Mr. Burns being more Cruella like? I don't know.
I know in the sequel, 102 Dalmatians, she needs 102 Dalmatians now.
Oh.
So in the original, she needs 99 to make the coat, and then 101 brings, you know, it comes to 101 when you take into account the parents as well.
Yes.
And all the other dogs were stolen or bought.
Yes.
And, you know, on top of the 15 original that belonged to Pongo and Purdy. The sequel, 102 Dalmatians, she needs 102 puppies now.
Just that one extra dog.
for a hood.
Oh, for a hood.
Yeah, this new coat, she wants to add a hood, which kind of thinks like, you think you'd need... If you needed 99 for the coat, you'd probably need a bit more than 3 more for the hood, you know?
Yeah.
Unless it's going to be like a snood just like wrapped around her head. But why are we talking about the logistics of puppy skinning?
I don't. Mr. Scar... was it Scar or Skinner?
Skinner.
Skinner is what is probably a left field for me, because I genuinely forgot he was in the film.
Yes.
Both times I watched.
He's a fairly well-known actor, but I don't know his name. They sort of then give the whole skinning responsibility from Horace and Jasper to him.
Yes.
And you've got this other plot line about Cruella going so far as to skin a Siberian tiger in captivity for her personal coat collection, her fur collection.
Yes.
Which is properly demented.
We're really going to say anything more about this, how do you quote Roger, devil of a woman being more demented?
Yeah. It kind of tying back to Cruella. It's kind of what I expected for her to go on, for safaris, and shooting lions and bears and other kind of creatures and taking their skins. That's what you think.
That's genuinely what you have in your head.
Because it seems like that's what this woman is. She's the sort to go out in like her leopard print, safari uniform, or zebra print or something.
Yeah.
And it's actually made from zebra, skins and shooting animals and doing all this horrendous stuff. And yeah, a lot of heavy lifting done by Glenn Close. She really makes it properly monstrous.
Oh, absolutely.
Another element as well that's entirely missing from the live action but present quite prominently within the animated is Sergeant Tibbs, the cat.
Ah, yeah, Sergeant
and
Tibbs.
And the colonel or the general, the dog?
The colonel and the captain is the horse.
Yes, who are, I guess, paid homage to by having cat and a sheepdog.
Yes.
And a horse.
They were animals kept at Her Royal Majesty's 81st Royal Lancers Barracks.
Right, yeah, that makes sense as to why they've gone and got all those titles.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's Sergeant Tibbs, the cat, who kind of leads the rescue of the puppies in the animated original. And within the live action, you've gone and got this unnamed Airedale Terrier, and all the other animals are just there sort of for, as Easter eggs.
All for one type of thing.
Yeah. Raccoons.
I didn't think England had raccoons.
No, they don't. Why are raccoons in England? It's one of those things which you sort of comes to you later on. Like, when you watch it as a kid and you're like, why were there raccoons in England?
Why are there raccoons in England?
Why is there a woodpecker in England? That's quite a long scene where they hear a knock at the door and then they open the door and there's no one there, and then there's a knock at it again and it's a woodpecker knocking on the door. And Horace and Jasper have this entire sort of sequence where they're doing that. It's very strange.
How does it work?
But yes, the responsibilities of Sergeant Tibbs are given over to this dog. And I guess it kind of makes sense. You're working in live action. The dogs don't talk as well.
No.
I remember with my sister and I, we used to watch it and sort of add our own voices when we watched it. But yes, it's very starkly different in that regards.
Very starkly different.
A lot more comedy from Horace and Jasper, especially the electric fence scene.
Oh.
Cruella truly gets her comeuppance as she's thrown in molasses or some other sludge, it's probably something else. Yeah. Quite different. Starkly different.
Very different.
And it stands in contrast to a lot of live-action Disney remakes you get now.
Yeah.
Where
two different eras. Because Disney was all about the sequels in the 90s and the early 2000s and trying to transition into live action.
They were really pushing the live action. I've read a few times that, God, I mean, even I think back then with the original 101 Dalmatians, I read that they were actually considering dropping animation altogether and moving into live action then. Which they did for a bit. I mean, Kurt Russell, actor, had his start in live action Disney movies back in the 1960s. Gosh, I mean, Snake Plissken, eh?
Yeah, right. Sean Connery in a very earlier one as well.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Gosh. These sort of all come about in times where it seems like live action is more on the up and up, and either animation takes a back seat or strives and succeeds.
Animation costs a lot more. People cost just as much. It's kind of...
And time-consuming as well. I mean, it was taking 4 or 5 years to make a movie. Like, they were working on the original 101 Dalmatians when the previous film, which I believe might have been Sleeping Beauty.
Yes, it was either Sleeping Beauty or Cinderella.
One of those, probably Sleeping Beauty, because Sleeping Beauty you don't hear much about unless it's in regards to Maleficent. Whereas Cinderella was everywhere.
Oh, God. So was Snow White.
Yeah, well, that failed, and it was while they were making 101 Dalmatians. They were already like a few years into production, It's really fascinating as well reading about, the design choices and how they used to use like actual live models as animation reference,
Yeah.
and the animators would be there designing the characters with their boards. And I mean, now it's all can be done in half the time. Final thoughts on both and sort of the series as a whole.
I will always love the animated film. I think I have a new appreciation for the live action.
So yeah, what are your sort of thoughts on them? Like, you do like them both, do you?
Yeah, I do like them both. Granted, I think I'm a little bit past the target demographic now, but I can appreciate them both, and I did thoroughly enjoy the animated film. It sort of brought me back to when I was sitting in front of the telly with putting in the cassette tape, rewinding it, and getting ready to watch.
Yeah,
Oh,
visually.
God, that's showing my age.
One thing that really stood out to me as well was the backgrounds, like a very sort of intricate line work, and then the colours were sort of just like big solid blocks of like purples and blues and greens and greys, and it was a very interesting choice.
It
I
almost
found.
looked like its own individual artwork, like you could see it up in a gallery somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things often stand out by having very painterly backgrounds, whereas this sort of feels in tune with the rest of the visuals which are on screen by having those lines. It's sort of like, it's kind of like when you used to watch an old cartoon and like it would be a painted background, but then something would be obviously drawn like a rock because you knew that was going to be interacted with or smashed or broken. But this, by having the background match the lines of the animated characters, it all sort of blends together really well. I think the live action one for me really stands out as being quite strong, and because it's so different as well. Like, you compare it to Beauty and the Beast, which the live action does some good things.
I've never watched it.
But, okay, well, I think it does some good things. There's quite a nice song sung by Dan Stevens in there. But you're just comparing the two and just going, well, the animated one did it better. Because it can go further, it can do more. And it's just like, it's basically exactly the same. You can match scene for scene, shot for shot. Whereas 101 Dalmatians, both movies are so radically different. While there are borrowed lines, and of course the core premise and the same inspiration, they're two different things.
Yes.
Which, yeah. So, live action, animated one for you.
Yep.
And I guess purely nostalgia, for me, live action. Anyway. So we finished up our little compare the pair a little early, so we're going to take a look at The Bad Batch, which is the animated Star Wars series streaming every week on Disney+.
Every Friday.
Every Friday, yeah. So this is a spin-off to The Clone Wars, the animated series there. It's a prequel to Rebels, another animated series. We follow a bunch of clone troopers following the end of the Clone War, going into the Empire era, trying to find their place. We're a few episodes in now.
Yes,
we offered our thoughts.
7 in, I believe.
As of the time of recording.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on it so far?
I think that it's really trying to sell home the story of disfranchised soldiers trying to find their place in the world. In a galaxy that's changing and having ticking time bombs in their head up until now. Recent episode where they got them removed and only one of them actually executing Order 66.
Yeah, the clone troopers are all bred with like this chip inside their head that makes them incapable of not following this order when given. And while it didn't activate while the order was given, it has been that ticking time bomb, like you said.
Yes, and to hear it from Rex, who was present and actually enacted Order 66, to hear his description of it was very, very vivid. How he almost felt captured by it, uncontrollable of his actions, no matter what, that it was driving him.
Yeah. I really think as well it's really building up the relationship between the 4 clones and Omega, the young female clone. Like 4 men and a little lady.
5 clones.
5 clones. Yeah, well, 5
Hunter,
clones.
Echo, Tech,
Wrecker.
Oh, never mind.
4. Yeah.
There we go. I keep
Cross.
forgetting Crosshair's not there anymore. They're really focusing on the core 5.
It's sort of been more
including
filler.
Omega.
It's really been like sort of filler for a while.
Yeah.
Good filler.
Good filler.
Like, I mean, going
I've
to...
probably only had a couple of grown moments in Decommissioned, where the Martez brothers sisters returned.
Yes.
I rolled my eyes hard, but I did get a chuckle and a groan when they had a moment of, we need a distraction. We need a distraction. Is there an Echo in here? I'm Echo.
So cheesy, but so good.
Yes.
It's cool to see planets like Corellia and Bracca, which is from Jedi Fallen Order. That's where
Yes.
Cal Kestis, it's big rain-coloured planet, junk
He's
planet.
probably out there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking it's one of those things where I'm like, is Proxima Midnight? Is not Proxima Midnight? It's Marvel. Is Lady Proxima going to show up? Is Han or Kira or Cal Kestis going to show up? Thankfully not. But it's really hitting those core locations and showing them in different nights,
adding more to the connective tissue of the universe.
which I'm appreciating.
I'm very appreciative of the show, and I think the characters are doing great. Dee Dee Baker, doing fantastic, man. Keep at it.
Yeah, it's good.
It is.
Check it out if you're a Star Wars fan.
Absolutely.
Anyway, this has been the Geeks Review. We did compare the pair of 101 Dalmatians, the live-action remake and the animated original, and we also offered our thoughts on the Bad Batch series as it's going so far.
Yes, what's being called the halfway point.
Yeah. We'll be back in a few weeks' time to sort of go into that in more depth.
Hopefully with our thoughts on the first 3 episodes of Loki.
Oh, yes, well, yes, of course. We'll be back next time. I'm Royce.
And I'm Joshua.
See you next time. Bye for now.